Hey everybody, this is Tom Salemi of DeviceTalks. Thanks for being part of DeviceTalks Tuesdays. We're excited to host your presentation. I'm joined by my great producer, Emira. She's going to join me in explaining what you need to do to really put together the sharpest presentation and the most effective presentation for our DeviceTalks audience. We're going to go over a few key points in this video. We'll follow it all up on a follow-up conversation. So this isn't all the information you're going to get, but we just kind of wanted to give you a little taste of what's coming when you do your DeviceTalks Tuesdays. So we're going to just have a quick short presentation here about how to structure your webinar. So we really want these conversations to solve a problem. We don't want you just to get up here and talk about your services or talk about your product. You will do that, but in a way that is most, I think, appealing and most effective for the audience. We have had instances where folks have tried to be a little more pitchy in the past and they don't work as well. So we'd love it if you could structure your webinar to present what the problem is for a medical device developer, for a manufacturer, for anyone whose job is creating medical devices, and then bring in your solution, what you have, your product, your service to solve that problem. It's always best if you have a case study, a customer who can sort of speak to the challenges that they had and how your solutions help them overcome those challenges, and make it as how-to as possible. You're welcome to have, we can talk a bit about slides and presentations a bit more. Emira is going to get a lot of information on that, but we can go slide heavy or slide light. We can build these conversations however you want them to be. But all in all, again, focus on helping your customers, your future customers, solve the problems that they have. So that's the best way to structure a webinar. Emira, it's great to have you on one of these finally. You're always in the back room pulling all the levers and pushing all the buttons that need to be pushed to get them done. But why don't you talk a bit about how folks can engage the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Well, before we move on to engagement, I am going to touch on time distribution really quick, just because this is a question we have a lot, which is, well, we have an hour. What exactly does that mean? Do we speak for the whole hour? Where do we put our questions? And so a general flow of our DeviceTalks webinars, they are an hour. We have an full hour time slot. Tom will introduce you, your speakers, your company, the webinar, all of that. That takes about 5 minutes, depending on how chatty Tom is feeling that day. Then from there, we always recommend between 30 and 40 minutes for the actual presentation itself. And then leaving plenty of room for Q&A, for discussion. That's really where the value of these are, and our audience really loves to get into the details and ask questions. So making sure that you leave plenty of time for Q&A. That being said, if you want to pepper some questions throughout the webinar, we are perfectly happy to accommodate that. Just let us know when we're in our tech rehearsal that that's what you'd like to see, and we'll make that happen as well.
In fact, I think we kind of like it when the presentations are broken up a bit by questions. It just seems more like it's a conversation. So something to consider.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. So that being said, we also want to really keep the audience engaged. That's part of the way we do that is with questions. But just a couple of background information pieces. These webinars are live. Every now and then we get a question like, hey, can we record this? Not for a DeviceTalks webinar. We want our audience to see you, to be able to ask questions, to know that there is someone live sitting there on the other end of the computer to engage with them. In that same vein, we want our webcams to be on. We want people to be able to see there's a real person on the other side of that voice, and to be able to build that trust with the audience and the presenter. We also have the option to provide downloadable resources to our attendees. You'll actually see a couple of resources in your console today. We have these slides just in case you'd like to take a peek back at them and review these notes. And we also have the content plan instructions. All right, Tom, so let's talk a little bit more about Q&A.
Absolutely. So basically, we are looking for a back and forth. We want this. We've had presentations. We've had DeviceTalks Tuesdays where they've been long presentations by a single person. They sometimes work. If they're a good technical conversation, they can draw a lot of people. But people do, I think, come to DeviceTalks Tuesdays because it's a bit different, because we do invite back and forth. We are able to take questions from the audience through a text chat box, so people will submit their questions and I'll read those questions to the panelists. There's an opportunity for a member of your team to be on backstage, so to speak, reviewing those questions just to make sure, the questions are going to move along the conversation the best way possible. And then I'll be asking those questions. But we also I'd love to be part of that conversation as well, as much as you want me to be. I can generate questions on my own at times, but sometimes if a conversation is particularly technical, I would appreciate some seed questions from you folks, just to sort of move things along and to keep the conversations going. So seed questions are a great way not only to encourage the audience members to ask their own questions, because sometimes it takes 1 or 2 questions to get the audience going. But if you have a point that you want to amplify, if you've said something in a slide and you want to revisit it in a way that's less obvious, let me ask a question about it. Let me ask you to expand upon it. Let me ask you to repeat something so you can really drill that point home. Or if there's a point where you don't have a slide for this particular information, it's really hard to kind of put that in slide form, but you want that information out in an audio form. That's another great kind of seed question opportunity where I can ask, well, what about this and what about that? And you can provide that information as well. Again, we can take questions during the conversation. We love it when people sort of want it to be a little bit of back and forth, or we can save them all at the end. It's really, both models work. It's really what is most comfortable for you and what sort of allows you to present your story more comfortably. And as Emira said, we'd love to have at least 10 minutes for Q&A. Be better if it were 20, I think. We do get a lot of questions from the audience, so I think the more questions we're making time for, whether they're questions that I've come up with or questions from the audience, I think it just sort of invites, it's a more memorable experience. So make sure you do save some time for Q&A at the end and give the audience members something to look forward to and to be part of the conversation.
Definitely. And remember that the audience can ask questions even watching on demand. So we do see a lot of on-demand views for our Device Talks Tuesdays. Although we like them to be live and we like our live audience, just remember that our audience, they can ask questions even after the live performance has ended. They'll be emailed to you, and so you can still answer those questions even through on-demand views.
Yep, and you'll talk about the report, but you'll know who's asking the questions and such, so you'll have a complete sense of who the people are. And just to speak to the presentation again, I mean, to be frank, Emira and I did not rehearse this. Like, they don't need to. They need to be, I think, move slowly and stuff. But if there's some authenticity and some realness to it and some back and forth, I think the audience members really appreciate that. So
absolutely. It's okay if the presenter says, I'm not sure, because like Tom said, you'll get a report, you'll have the name of the person who asked the question, and you can always say, I'm not really sure, but that's a great question, and we'd love to reach back out to you and talk about this further.
Amen. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Let's get into timelines now. There's a lot to this process, but Emira is going to be super helpful during the way, and we're both here to make sure it goes as smooth as possible.
Yeah, so this is what our general timeline looks like. We are going to ask that we have your content plan 7 weeks before the webinar. It seems like a long time, but it goes faster than you think. This gives us plenty of time for promotion. It gives us plenty of time to really look at your description, at your learning objectives, and tweak them if necessary. We have found some things that work and don't work over the last few years that this has been done. And so we're really, we're here to help you. So that content plan, sometimes the term content plan, we throw it around like everybody knows what we're talking about. But the content plan is really your blueprint that you're using to help us set up your webinar. This is not the full presentation, so don't feel like you have to have your entire presentation done 7 weeks before the webinar. This is primarily your abstract, your description, learning objectives, information about your speakers, all of the things that we use to promote your webinar and get people to sign up to watch it. So after we get that information, I will build the registration page and some promotional emails. I'll send you a copy to make sure that I didn't make any mistakes or there's not something that you'd like to add or change. We'll have your approval, and then we'll start promotions. Then as far as our communications, we're kind of in a holding pattern until we get a little bit closer to the webinar itself. Then a week before the webinar date, that's when I would like to get your PowerPoint, any attendee resources that you'd like to share, and those seed questions that we talked about, just to kind of get the audience conversation going. I can get those all loaded into the back end of our platform. That's what's really cool about this platform. Everything is done through the back end, so no one has to worry about sharing their screen, sharing their slides, anything like that. So if anybody does happen to lose connectivity, we can continue on just as if nothing ever happened. That being said, we do have a tech rehearsal just to make sure that we can limit those connectivity issues. So the tech rehearsal is not a full walkthrough. This is just a 30-minute at most meeting that we all jump on the back end of the platform, make sure that everyone can connect video, connect their audio, can hear, can see, and then I'll walk you through the platform, make sure that you and your presenters understand how to do everything on the back end. Then after that, we will have your webinar. And the day after your webinar, you'll get a report from me, the full report, everybody who registered, everybody who attended live, on demand, all their questions, anything that they downloaded, any links that they clicked on, all of that information will go to you after your webinar. So real quickly, I'll just touch on so that you know what is required. So for the content plan itself, we've got your title, your description, those learning objectives, a logo image, and your promotional image, or what we call your hero image. So this is not something that you're going to send to your graphics team and have them add a lot of text or anything to. This is really more of a stock type image that our graphics team will take and make into those promotional images that I will share with you once they are all done. But if you think like a header of an email or even the thumbnail on the DeviceTalks library page, that is the image that we're looking for. So we want something that is going to be a visual representation of your company or of the subject of the webinar. Then for each presenter, we'll just need name, title, company, email address. They don't have to share it publicly. Most of them have their email in the little speaker bio box that you'll see on your screen. That's where that will be included. But if you don't want their email included, that's fine. Just let me know. I still have to have it so that I can send out all of the calendar invites and all of that. But we'll also need headshot, bio, and if you want to include any social links, LinkedIn is especially popular, include those as well. And as you see, they're there in that bio section of the console.
Yeah, and just to revisit just a couple of points on that, regarding the backdrops, you can see Emira. We'll go over a lot of this in the pre-call. There's a lot of little details, but we're able to accommodate glitzy backdrops like I have for DeviceTalks, or you could just go with a blurred background like Emira has. And going back to the bullet points, we'd love you to present. Just again, give us 4 or 5 things that people will be learning during that presentation. What are the materials you're going to cover? What are the topics you'll be hitting upon? And so people who attend this webinar will learn 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really make it as direct as possible. And those always, I think, generate the best response from folks. And to address, I love the Tom's tips in this. The earlier you turn this in, the better it is for all of us. If we get something a few weeks before the webinar, we will do our absolute best. But if we have 5 or 6 or 7 weeks to promote this, if your webinar is up there for 2 or 3 months prior to your webinar, everyone who goes to DeviceTalks Tuesdays registration page will see that yours is coming up later, and they'll sign up for it, hopefully. So just help us help you and get us your materials as soon as possible.
Yes, and this year of 2024, we're also going to be doing a monthly roundup. So if you are late in getting your materials, I cannot guarantee that you'll be in that monthly roundup of the episodes that are coming up on DeviceTalks. So another incentive to just get that content plan in as early as you can. If you do feel like you're going to be running into issues, someone's going to be out of town, or we're just not sure, please reach out to me and let's work something out and figure out the best way to move forward.
Absolutely.
For the webinar itself, pretty simple. We'll need some slides. Like Tom said, you can go light on the slides, you can go heavy on the slides. We do recommend capping it around 30 just for time management's sake, but that depends obviously on how much information you pack into every single slide. At least five seed questions, and then again, those attendee resources. So these resources, we normally share a PDF version of the slides. People really like to be able to see that. White papers, studies, ebooks, product guides, anything that you'd like to share. Maybe, you want to address this new product, but you don't want to make this a promotional pitch about the product. Put it in the additional resources section. People will see that, download that, and get information about it that way. In addition, we can accommodate polls and surveys. We don't do this a whole lot, but if that's something you're interested in, ask me about it. And if you do want to include any sort of demonstration, a video clip is a really way to go about that. So just mention that to me as well when you're setting up your content, and we'll walk through how that looks.
That's great. That's a complete package right there. Yep. So, Emira, thank you for putting this this presentation together. This is great.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate. Reach out to Tom or myself, and we'll get you squared away. And thanks again for being a part of Device Talks.
Well said. Thanks, everybody.